Coming up on Kentucky Outlook, a closer look at the leaders behind the public school ranked #1 in the nation for the 3rd year in a row. And it's right here on WKU's campus. We're going to find out more about the Gatton Academy of Math and Science when Kentucky Outlook continues. And later in the show, we're going to find out about educating farm families on health and safety. That's next on Kentucky Outlook. Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Kentucky Outlook. I'm Barbara Deeb. You know, most public school teachers, especially high school teachers, would absolutely relish a classroom full of highly motivated, eager to learn students. But that's not always the case when you're dealing with gifted and talented students, because along with all those gifts that they have, they're a challenge because they get bored easily, they get distracted, they need to be stimulated. We're going to find out more about how WKU has answered the call of the gifted and talented here on the campus through the Gatton Academy of Math and Science. As we welcome to the program the Executive Director, Dr. Julia Link Roberts, who has joined us in the past. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
In addition, the brand new director of the Gatton Academy. I say brand new as we are recording this program. She's been here for a couple of months. Lynette Breedlove joins us as well. Thank you for being here.
Happy to be here.
You know, I don't want to shed a negative light at all on the opportunity to walk into a classroom and you've got all these bright eyes, eager to learn students. Oh my gosh, any teacher would give anything for that. But by the same token, a gifted student presents certain challenges. Give us a profile of what we're talking about when we call someone gifted and talented.
We're talking about young people who think and learn at a faster pace and are able to deal with complex content more easily earlier than others.
And this is something that when they attend the Gatton Academy, they can also get college credits while they're still in high school. So let's backtrack a little bit, because you were there at the beginning and you were a catalyst for a lot of the growth that we're seeing through the Gatton Academy, and congratulations on that point. But so we identified this cohort of gifted and talented students, and especially at the high school years. They get into high school and they're so far ahead of the others and their peers that they do get bored, they get distracted. So we saw a real need here. Take us through that process of how the Gatton Academy came to be here.
Well, the Gatton Academy was suggested in 1998, and it was another 10 years before we opened the doors. There was lots of advocacy work, lots of planning that went into that. But what the Gatton Academy offers is the opportunity for school districts across the state to extend the learning opportunities that they can provide to their students by sending them on to the Gatton Academy.
So it's like a bridge. And Lynette, I think that you used that word in some correspondence that you sent to me, you know, bridging that gap for that student. Talk about that, if you will.
Well, it's certainly an opportunity for students who are accelerated to have their academic needs met. So in a university setting, they can find the challenge they need in the intellectual stimulation. And it also provides a bridge between a typical high school experience and the college experience, because we provide a setting that's a little bit more structured than a typical college setting, but not nearly as structured as you'd find at a typical high school. So it's an opportunity for students to take on the challenge of the academic setting in a university providing, whether that's research or a course in something that they really enjoy but isn't offered in a typical high school. And they have an opportunity to really grow in a lot of other areas at the same time.
And if nothing else, to be around their peers, to be around other students who are where they are, where they maybe don't feel like an oddball. And is that, am I jumping the gun on that?
That's so very important. Probably what the Gatton students value the most is the community that they create.
Yes, just being around others like myself. And speaking of that, we're going to have one of the students from the Gatton Academy join us in the second segment. So here we are. We took 10 years in the making, but as we speak, there's a lot of growth and opportunity going on. So currently we have over 100 juniors and seniors at the Gatton Academy. Am I right on that
120
number?
together.
Okay.
And with the expansion, we'll be able to have 200 students, 100 juniors and 100 seniors.
And why do we identify the juniors and seniors? Why not freshmen, sophomores? How's that work?
Well, that was the choice that was made. That's what the other 14 schools, states that have state schools, are doing. A few of them do sophomores too, but none of them do 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th.
So we decided that that was a good age to bring these kids in, and yeah.
And we followed the Texas model, and that's what they did, and it had been very successful for a long time. And
Lynette, you come to us from Texas.
I do. Texas has had the academy there for about 25 years, and it's been very successful. It's slightly larger than Kentucky's academy. But I think the planning that was done in formatting how we serve students here in Kentucky was very well thought out. It was really an opportunity to build on the existing programs and take what works from a number of different places and put it together in the best model. So our students are provided this opportunity completely tuition free, so students and families don't have to pay for tuition, fee, room, or board, which means it really is accessible by all of Kentucky's students who need this type of service. A number of our other sister schools have gone to where their students are required to pay fees, and that eliminates some students from having the opportunity to take advantage of what we can offer.
So I have a gifted and talented high school student, and I'd like to get them to the Gatton Academy. How does that process work?
Well, it's very important that they start thinking about it early, because they must have completed Algebra 2 and geometry to apply. Now, that's not hard from some high schools, but from others, it would be very difficult to have taken those 3 classes by the end of your sophomore year. And then they go through the online application process, and applications are due the 1st of February.
Applications due the 1st of February, and of course at the end of these segments, as we're talking about this, we'll put up the information where you can go to find out more about the Gatton Academy. So, you know, those prerequisites are important. They have to fill out the online, but then what? Then you go through and you process and you take a look at what's out there. You have a limited number that you can select?
Oh yes, you have to have a bed if you're at a residential school, and so the number is certainly limited by the number of beds.
And you have a committee then that selects the students, or how does that work?
Our staff comes together as a team and reviews all of the parts of students' applications. So students are building a resume in their application. They'll submit responses to 4 essay questions. We'll look at their ACT scores and their teacher recommendations. And then we look at all of those things together in a very holistic fashion to see which students are really ready for the challenges that we provide, both academically and who are ready to join us and live away from their families for 2 years.
Because that's an element that people maybe don't think about, that they are going to be, in essence, they're bye-bye. They're going to be on campus.
They are. They're going to live with us for 2 years, although we have closed weekends, so students are encouraged to go home about once a month to spend time with their families. I mean, we joke that we have to have closed weekends because students love the community at our school so much they would never go home if we didn't have closed weekends.
Out of here, out of here. Speaking of out of here, we're going to take a short break on Kentucky Outlook, and when we come back, we'll meet one of the Gatton students, so don't go away. Stay with us. Hello and welcome back to Kentucky Outlook. I'm Barbara Deeb. We're talking today about the Gatton Academy of Math and Science located on the WKU campus. And what it does is extend an amazing opportunity to juniors and seniors from throughout Kentucky who are gifted and talented. We have the executive director of the Gatton Academy, Dr. Julia Roberts. In addition, the newly appointed director of the Gatton Academy, Lynette Breedlove. And joining us now in this segment, we have a student from the Gatton Academy, Rena Ryumai. Ryumai? Did I do it? I did it, okay. And so we thought it would be a perfect opportunity to find out from a student's perspective what goes on at the Gatton Academy. But before we do that, if you're just joining us, Julia, would you recap for us what we're talking about when we talk about the best public high school in the country, located right here on the WKU campus? Congratulations on that designation.
Thank you. And we're talking about the opportunity for juniors and seniors to study at the college level for 2 years and then to graduate from high school with a minimum of 60 college hours.
Put that in perspective, viewers, that these students will walk away from here, not only do they have a high school degree, but they have 60 credit hours toward college.
And that's a minimum.
That's a minimum. That's unbelievable. It's called the Gatton Academy for Math and Science. It actually has a longer name, the Carol Martin Gatton Academy for Math and Science. But Rena, you come to this, you've been identified as a student who is gifted and talented. Share with our audience, if you would, what that means as a human being, okay? So you're coming up with all your peers, but suddenly you realize there's something a little bit different about you.
Sure, and so when I was coined this term, being gifted and talented, I realized, like as you mentioned, that I was sort of different from the other people, and kids who don't like school and would rather go out and play ball and things like that, compared to me, who loved math or reading instead, and would rather have focused on math problems and things like that. So I quickly noticed, especially within elementary school, how different that gap became between us and them.
And then you found out about the Gatton Academy, and chime in here, ladies, if you want to, but you found out that this opportunity existed, and you were like, I'm going to jump on this.
Absolutely, absolutely. I heard about this in middle school, actually, so when Gatton Academy was very new at that time, and it piqued my interest, and I wasn't fully invested into this idea until sophomore year of my high school, when the time came for me to apply, and after that, I was very fortunate to have the opportunity, and I'm glad to be here.
And what do you want to do one day? What would your dream
I'm very
job?
interested in biomedical engineering. I'm also extremely interested in nanotechnology and its medical applications. And so I really hope to become perhaps a physician scientist, focusing on the different ways we can utilize nanotechnology in the future.
Well, we wish you well, and
Thank
with that
you very
enthusiasm,
much.
we will get there. But talk to us, Lynette and Julia, about students like Rena. I mean, oh my gosh, to walk into a classroom and have 10 of these students before you as an instructor, what an amazing gift that would be. But where are we at in the state of Kentucky when it comes to identifying gifted and talented? Have we made strides? You've been in that field for a while.
Actually, we have wonderful law and regulation, but we aren't doing as well with implementation across the state, certainly not as well as we could or that I would love for us to do.
So still a ways to go.
Well, the districts are so different from the far west to the far east, and some would be providing quite a bit of opportunity even in high school, and others are so limited. One of the things when the students come for interviews for the Gatton Academy, one of the things that just almost overwhelms me is the limited opportunities that some of them have. Virtually, they will have exhausted almost every class their high school will offer them, and they're sophomores.
And they're hungry and they're ready for more.
They're like
sad.
Rena, and they are so ready to learn. And by coming together at the Gatton Academy, the community is so strong in terms of social emotional support as well as in terms of academic opportunity.
And Rena, in the first segment, you were sitting in the studio, so you heard us talk about that. But you being identified as gifted and talented, probably there was a time when you maybe felt ostracized or left out from your peer group. But then to be able to come to the Gatton Academy and, gosh, there are others like me. What did that feel like?
Absolutely. It's an amazing feeling to be able to meet other people whose eyes just light up with excitement, just like you did with topics that most other high schoolers don't even think about or even try to talk about with other people. And so being able to be involved in a community where everybody is like that, and with so many different types of subjects that you really get to learn and you mature and you really become and feel like a family at Gatton Academy.
That's what Lynette was saying. We have to encourage you to go home on the weekends. Huh? Now, the growth factor. All right, we've talked we've mentioned during these two segments about being named the top public high school in the country. Is located right here on WKU's campus. Now, that designation came from, initially the first 2 years, it was Newsweek and the Daily Beast?
That's correct. And Newsweek has become an online publication, and this year they didn't do that, but the Daily Beast continued to do it. So all 3 years we've been so named by the Daily Beast.
And of course, a big congratulations, but they look at 6 subject areas?
They look at 6 different areas. They're looking at the rigor of your curriculum. They're looking at some areas in which we did the top and some areas in which we weren't the top, but the cumulative score left us at the top.
And some of those areas are, excuse me, we're looking at college graduation.
College graduation, of course, we have 100% of the students who have the opportunity to, or that do take the opportunity and graduate from college.
And some of those other areas, Lynette?
So they look at the number of students taking college level courses. And of course, all of our students are taking college level courses because everything we offer is embedded in WKU's coursework. They look at the number or percentage of students who graduate and then go on to college and have acceptance rates. And they look at test scores as well. And so our students are exceptional students. So we've gathered some of the most exceptional students in the Commonwealth here together. So we have a bit of a leg up on that because of the way they do the metrics. But our students are very focused on their futures, and so they take advantages of all the opportunities we offer, and that helps with those types of designations when people are looking at different schools.
And growth, you talk about growth, you know, 120 students now, what's happening in the way of growth?
We will be expanding the numbers. As I said earlier, you have to have a bed to go to a residential school, so to provide 200 beds, we will be adding on to Schneider Hall starting this May. We'll move out for a year into another residence hall, and we'll build onto the wings, and in doing so we'll also build on to the office space and have a room that will be big enough for all 200 to gather together.
And that's just the beginning, and with you behind that, I can see where those numbers will continue to grow. We've been talking with Dr. Julia Roberts, who is the Executive Director, and Dr. Lynette Breedlove, who is the Director of the Gatton Academy for Math and Science, and one of its students, and that student is Rena Ryumai. Now, Rena, where are you going to go after graduation? What's your plan?
To be honest, I have no idea.
Okay.
And that's the way it is, I guess, for most other high school students. I'm looking at all different types of places, both in-state and out-of-state. For in-state, for University in Kentucky and University of Louisville, as well as WKU, our campus here, we do have a wonderful scholarship that comes along with being just an academy student. And so that has opened up a realm of possibilities for me for there, as well as everywhere else.
Well, continued success to all of you.
Thank you very much.
And as we said, we're going to put up more information about the Gatton Academy. And when Kentucky Outlook continues, we're going to talk about educating farm families. Stay with us. Kentucky Outlook continues. I'm your host, Barbara Deeb. And now we go from educating the gifted and talented to educating farm families as we welcome to the program Lucy Jewett, who in her real life is the director of AHAC, but you can tell us what that is. But you serve on the Kentucky Partnership Board, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that. First of all, AHAC stands for?
Area Health Education Center.
So it makes sense then that you would work with Kentucky's farmers on health and safety.
Sure.
So tell us a little bit about the partnership and how it all came to be.
Well, the partnership actually goes back to 1991, and its origin started with a Kellogg grant. And the Kellogg grant was a partnership between Dr. Susan Jones, a professor here in WKU's School of Nursing, and the University of Kentucky's Southeast Center for Agriculture Health and Injury Prevention.
Boy, that you could remember to say
well,
all that.
I practiced that now.
Good for you.
And so the goal was to come up with something that was going to promote safety on the farm. And what the end result was is they focused on farm women. Because although things are very different today than they were when I grew up on the farm, most farm women are no longer on the farm because they need health insurance.
They're working.
They're working, that's right. But still, women are considered the health officer of the family, whether it's the farm family or any family. And so they decided if they focused on farm women and they educated farm women, they thought they could then get to the farmer and to the children.
Now, before you go any further, the fact that they were looking at health and safety on a farm speaks to the fact that maybe it wasn't so safe.
Correct. Farming has always been one of the most dangerous occupations, and in 2013 it was listed as the 9th most dangerous occupation in terms of fatalities, but that doesn't include injuries. And we know that there are lots and lots of farm injuries. We have a lot of farmers today that we call part-time farmers because they're currently working in order to provide support for the family. But once farming is in your blood, it doesn't get out, and so then they go home after they've worked a full day, and then they work at night. And you know, if you're familiar with farms, you have to do the work when the weather permits. And so they may work until 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night. You see tractors in the fields with lights on them. So they're tired.
So where you're going with this, they're tired. It's almost like being an impaired driver to a certain extent.
It absolutely
they're so tired.
is.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so they get out there. And so the need was there.
Absolutely.
And after the Kellogg grant ran out, per se, they then looked to, you know, we need to sustain this. We need to make this permanent.
That was actually a requirement of the Kellogg grant. And many grants have that requirement. It's just that it usually doesn't happen. But in this case, it did happen. And it happened because of the people in this community and the leadership of Dr. Susan Jones in particular. So it started in '91 with the Kellogg grant, and then in '93 the Kentucky Partnership for Farm Family Health and Safety was incorporated as a private nonprofit corporation, and it has existed like that since that time.
Okay, so it's in existence right now, and maybe a lot of farmers who might be watching this show are already familiar with it. But what are some of its goals and its mission?
Well, the goal is really to promote farm safety, farm health and safety, and that's through community advocacy.
But you know, you referenced a story a little bit ago about, you know, how as it stands right now, a lot of farmers and farm families are having to work off the farm, outside the farm, because they just can't sustain themselves. They need to either have health insurance or they need to make more money. The point being, to promote safety to a farmer, when you say you've worked a 10-hour day outside the farm, you come home, they have to get the job done.
You're right.
So what do you do?
Well, again, we worked through women and many times children. Many people will do things for their children that they wouldn't do otherwise, and farmers are no different. And so if you can educate the woman, the female on the farm, and help her understand how these things are not safe and what you need to do to make it more safe, then sometimes she can convince the farmer, her husband, to make the changes to protect the children.
So the partnership as it stands is incorporated, and so it's a lot about educating and awareness.
Sure.
So how do we reach the farmers? How do we reach those farm women? How do we reach those farm children?
Well, it started with the women were community coordinators. They identified the leaders in the farm communities, and they brought them together and educated them. It was great. Now we're focusing a lot more on children, and one of our big projects is the annual Ag Safety Day. And this year was our 20th year. We have participated in that program every year since it was established.
So what's the biggest safety issue on a farm?
Whoa, that's a great question, and it probably depends on the type of farm. If you're talking about a grain farm, it might be the equipment. The equipment is huge. It's very dangerous. If you're talking about livestock, many farmers get injured when they're trying to vaccinate or treat the livestock, or when the female animal has a baby. They're very protective, and you're trying to treat the baby, and sometimes you get injured that way.
Have manufacturers of farm equipment answered some of these calls?
Yes. Roll bars on tractors is a big thing. You can't buy a tractor today that does not have a roll bar, so that if the tractor turns over and if you've got your seatbelt on, then you're going to be protected. But there's a lot of old equipment out there, and it can be retrofitted, but it's not cheap. And then the other issue is farmers are like all the rest of us. We've done something 1,000 times and we didn't get injured. And so it's that 1,001 time, and we didn't put our seatbelt on, and the tractor turns over and we get thrown under the tractor. Or we took the protective shaft off of the PTO, and clothing gets caught in it and injured, sometimes, many times fatalities. So, you know, a lot of human mistakes. but manufacturers have done a good job of improving the equipment.
So as it stands, you have a poster contest. You use these funds to help with what? With Ag Day and some of those others?
Well, we have several projects. The Ag Day is one of our biggest ones. We'll have about 400 fourth grade students every year, and we do it at the WKU Ag Expo Center, which is a perfect location. They'll rotate through about 10 different safety sessions, health and safety sessions, and those sessions are short. They're 15 minutes, so we don't lose their attention. And then as a way to follow up in the classroom, we do sponsor the poster contest, and we encourage the teachers to have the students participate. We'll pick 12 winners, and they will be featured on our calendar each year, and then the top 3 winners will get cash prizes starting at $150 and then $100 and then $50 for first, second, and third place.
Excellent, but it's all about keeping farm families safe.
Absolutely.
And aware. We're going to put up a website if you want to find out more information, and we thank you, Lucy Jewett, for coming and sharing the story of the Kentucky Partnership.
Thanks for the opportunity.
And that's going to wrap it up for this week's edition of Kentucky Outlook. I'm Barbara Deeb. We're glad you joined us. Don't forget to check us out on Facebook and at our webpage. We'll see you next time.